It happened on an ordinary Sunday afternoon, over roast chicken and sweet tea at my son's house. My phone buzzed on the table beside my plate. Unknown number. The message said, "Don't react. They're recording you." For a moment I thought it was a mistake, but as I looked up, everything around that dining room table shifted. My son David was cutting his meat, not meeting my eyes. His wife Melissa poured more tea with that perfect little smile that never quite reached her face. Their older boy, Ryan, barely touched his food. The youngest, Leo, was humming softly, oblivious. I kept eating, kept smiling, just like the message said, but inside my heart began to pound. I scanned the room, noticing details I'd never paid attention to before: the vase on the sideboard turned toward the table, the new decorative clock on the mantel aimed directly at us. It felt like a stage set for a performance I hadn't agreed to join. Melissa's voice floated through the air, sweet and deliberate. "Mom, have you thought about selling your house? It's such a big place for one person. David and I just worry about you." I smiled politely. "I like my house. It keeps me busy." David cleared his throat. "Maybe too busy. You should be enjoying retirement, not mowing lawns or fixing things." I folded my napkin. "I've been managing just fine for 40 years. Melissa reached across the table, touching my wrist. "Of course, but things can change quickly at your age. We just want to make sure you're protected. You know, power of attorney, all that paperwork." Her tone was gentle, but there was something cold underneath it, something rehearsed. Ryan looked at me, then really looked at me, and I saw fear in his eyes, not for himself. For me. That was when I knew this wasn't just about concern. Something was terribly wrong. When the meal ended, I hugged everyone, thanked them for lunch, and walked to my car under the soft afternoon sun. My phone was still in my hand, that message burning in my mind. "Don't react, they're recording you." I started the engine and sat there for a long moment, hands tight on the wheel. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked calm, even peaceful, but inside I was unraveling. Someone in my own family had turned me into a project, a problem to be solved, a story to rewrite. I didn't know who sent that message, but whoever it was, they'd just saved everything I had: my home, my freedom, and the truth about what was coming next. That night I drove home along the quiet streets of Maple Grove, the small town where I had lived for more than 40 years. The porch light was on, just as I had left it. My house looked peaceful the way it always did: white shutters, flower boxes, the same oak tree that David used to climb when he was little. But as soon as I stepped inside, something in the air felt off. The living room was too tidy. The ceramic lamp on the side table had been turned slightly, its shade angled toward the sofa. The hallway clock that usually faced the kitchen was now pointed toward the dining area. I stood still for a long moment, the silence pressing against my chest. I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was being paranoid. I made a cup of tea, sat at the kitchen table, and reached for my reading glasses in my purse. That was when I noticed a folded piece of paper wedged beside them. It wasn't there before. I unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was uneven, hurried, the kind that comes from fear. "Grandma, they put cameras in your house. Check your car glove box. Ryan." For a second the room spun. My own grandson, my sweet, quiet Ryan. My hands trembled as I grabbed my keys and went to the garage. The night air was cool, and the crickets sounded louder than usual. I opened the glove compartment. Inside was a small blue flash drive with a piece of tape across it. Written on it in black marker were 2 words: "For you." I went back inside and plugged it into my laptop. A single folder appeared: home videos. My stomach turned as I clicked. Dozens of files filled the screen. The first one opened to a familiar scene: me, in my bedroom, getting dressed. The angle was high, slightly to the left. I looked up at the screen and then to the smoke detector above my bed. A camera. My breath caught. Another file: me in the kitchen, pouring coffee, humming to myself. Then one in the bathroom, brushing my hair. The mirror fogged from the shower. I stopped it before I could see more. They'd been watching me. Every morning, every night, every quiet moment when I thought I was alone. I closed the laptop and pressed my palms against the table. The house felt smaller now, its walls closing in. Every shadow, every sound seemed to breathe. My heart pounded in my throat. Then, just as the panic threatened to break me, something inside went still. Years of teaching had trained me to think clearly, even in chaos. I took a deep breath. If they wanted to watch me, they would, but I would watch back. I got up, walked to the window, and pulled the curtains shut. The reflection in the glass showed a woman with gray hair and calm eyes. They thought I was old, fragile, easy to control. They were wrong. The lesson they were about to learn was one I had taught hundreds of students before: never underestimate the quiet ones. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, unable to sleep. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I brewed coffee, sat down at the table again, and opened the laptop. I had to see what I was really dealing with. Inside the same folder on the flash drive was another file called Plan. My stomach twisted as I clicked it open. It was a document, 5 phases laid out like a business proposal. Phase 1, install surveillance equipment, document concerning behavior. Phase 2, edit footage to highlight confusion or forgetfulness. Phase 3, obtain medical statement from a licensed financial consultant confirming cognitive decline. Phase 4, file for power of attorney. Phase 5, sell property and transfer funds. At the bottom was a note, expected timeline -6 months. Target completion October 12th. I stared at the date. That was 6 weeks from now. I scrolled through more files, screenshots of text messages between my son David, his wife Melissa, and her brother Eric. In one, Melissa wrote, "We need more footage of her looking disoriented. Maybe get her on a bad day." Eric responded, "Already edited 2 videos. Looks perfect. You'd swear she doesn't know where she is." Another message from David, "How soon can we file? The house should sell fast once I have POA." Eric replied, "The buyer's ready. Just need a few more clips to make it look convincing." I felt my pulse slow, the anger focusing into something sharp. They weren't just planning to take my home. They wanted my entire life's work, the money my husband and I had saved, the trust fund I'd created for Leo's education. I remembered the words Melissa had said at lunch, "We just want to make sure you're protected." The irony made my hands shake. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Patricia Lang. She'd been my attorney when my husband passed. Her voice on the other end was calm and steady. "Marianne, what's wrong?" I told her everything: the hidden cameras, the flash drive, the messages, the plan. There was silence for a long moment, then she said quietly, "Don't touch anything. Bring me the evidence today." Her office was in an old brick building downtown, the kind that smelled faintly of paper and polished wood. When I showed her the videos, she leaned forward, her expression tightening with every file. By the time I finished, she closed the laptop gently. "This isn't just betrayal," Patricia said. "It's criminal elder abuse, invasion of privacy, and fraud. We'll need to document everything and build a case. You can't let them know you know." I nodded, "So I pretend." She smiled slightly. "Exactly. You're an actress now, Marianne. Let them think their plan is working while we gather enough to destroy it." Driving home, the anger inside me had turned to purpose. My son thought I was too fragile to notice what he was doing. Melissa and Eric thought they were smarter. They'd mistaken my silence for weakness. They were about to learn that silence can be strategy. For the next few weeks, I lived 2 lives. In one, I was the gentle old woman they thought I was, smiling at family dinners, forgetting small details on purpose, pretending not to notice their questions about my finances. In the other, I was wide awake, collecting proof of every lie. Each morning, I taught my ESL class at the library. My students were immigrants learning their first English verbs, and they greeted me with warmth that made me feel human again. I smiled, corrected grammar, and practiced tenses, all while thinking about the trap my family was building. At home, I began searching carefully, one room at a time. The smoke detector in the hallway, the vent in the bathroom, even the ceramic rooster on top of my refrigerator, all hiding tiny cameras. I left them exactly as they were, let them think their little movie was still running. Meanwhile, Patricia worked quietly behind the scenes. She hired a private investigator and a digital forensics expert to verify the footage. Every edited video left a trace, a frame cut too soon, a timestamp out of sync. They would prove manipulation beyond doubt. Then came a breakthrough. The investigator found another victim, an older woman named Helen Porter. 2 years earlier, Eric had done the same thing to her. He'd convinced her to give him power of attorney after showing edited clips that made her look confused. Within 6 months, her house was gone, and she was moved into a cheap care home. Patricia and I visited Helen on a windy Thursday afternoon. The facility smelled of disinfectant and overcooked vegetables. Helen was sitting by the window doing a puzzle. She looked up, eyes tired but alert. "He did it to you too, didn't he?" she whispered. I nodded. She told us how she had trusted him, how he had called it a safety measure, how she signed the papers that cost her everything. I was stupid, she said. No, I told her softly, you trusted family. That's not stupid. When we left, Patricia said, her testimony will help us prove this is a pattern. We're almost ready. Almost. I returned home that evening and turned on every light in the house. I walked through each room deliberately, performing for the invisible audience I knew was still watching. I cooked dinner, paid bills at the kitchen table, called a friend about book club. Every movement calm, clear, capable. Let them record this, I thought. Let them see a woman who remembers everything. That night I wrote a note to Ryan, slipped it into the envelope of his next birthday card. Stay quiet. Keep acting normal. Grandma's got this. When I sealed it, I felt something shift inside me. The fear that had lived in my chest since that first message began to fade. What replaced it was something far stronger, a quiet determination. They thought I was trapped inside their story, but I was already writing a new ending. 3 weeks later, the night arrived that would change everything. David's company was hosting its annual Family and Community Values Gala, a charity dinner celebrating employees who demonstrate integrity and compassion. Patricia called it poetic justice. I called it my stage. The ballroom at the Grand Oak Hotel glowed with chandeliers and white linen. Waiters floated between tables carrying trays of champagne. I wore my navy blue dress, the one my late husband, Robert, had given me on our 30th anniversary. Ryan came with me wearing a borrowed suit and nerves. David spotted us across the room. His smile froze for half a second before he walked over. Mom, he said quietly, I didn't know you'd be here. I was invited, I answered. Your company was kind enough to send me a ticket. Melissa appeared at his side, her diamond earrings glittering like small lies. Well, how nice. You'll love the program. We took our seats near the back. Ryan's hand trembled slightly when he reached for his water glass. I touched his arm. It's okay, I whispered. Just breathe. At 7:30, the lights dimmed. The company president walked to the podium and began his speech about loyalty, family, and service. He spoke warmly of teamwork and dedication before calling David Ellis to the stage. The applause was polite, expectant. David walked up confidently, plaque in hand, a practiced smile on his face. Thank you, he began. This award means a lot to me. My father's passing taught me the importance of caring for the people we love, especially as they age. Family isn't just who we're born to, it's who we stand by. I felt Ryan stiffen beside me. My fingers closed around the small flash drive in my purse, heavy as a secret. When David finished, the president announced a short Q&A for audience reflections. I stood. Ryan whispered, Grandma, it's time. My heels clicked softly against the floor as I walked to the microphone. The room turned toward me, hundreds of faces, polite curiosity. The president smiled. Yes, ma'am, do you have something to share? My name is Marian Ellis, I said clearly. I'm David's mother. I'd like to show everyone here what family values truly look like in my house. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I turned to the audio technician. Would you please play the video on this flash drive? He hesitated. I was told there'd be a family tribute. That's exactly what this is, I said. The lights dimmed again. The screen behind the stage flickered to life. First, a split screen appeared. On one side, an edited video of me looking confused in the kitchen, searching drawers, leaving the stove on. On the other, the unedited version, me finding my tea strainer in 30 seconds, turning off the burner. Words appeared, footage manipulated to simulate cognitive decline. Gasps. Then came screenshots of text messages, Melissa asking Eric for more confused footage, Eric replying, already edited 2 videos. Next, the property sale agreement David had signed weeks earlier, listing my home for $850,000 pending legal guardianship approval. The room was utterly silent. And then, the final clip, from my own doorbell camera. David and Melissa stood on my porch at midnight. David's voice filled the room. Once I get power of attorney, we'll sell the place fast. She won't even know until it's done. Melissa asked, and if she fights it? David laughed. She's old, Melissa. Who's going to believe her over us? The screen went black. I stepped forward. These recordings were taken from hidden cameras installed in my home without my knowledge. They were meant to prove that I was unfit, so my son and his wife could steal my house, my savings, and my grandson's college fund. But instead, they proved something else, that greed can't hide behind family values. I handed the microphone back to the stunned technician. Behind me, chaos erupted. David shouted my name. Melissa was crying. The president stood frozen, the award plaque still in his hand. Ryan and I walked out together, through the whispers and the flashes of phones. Outside, the air was cool and clear. Ryan exhaled shakily. "Grandma, you did it." I looked at him and smiled. "No, sweetheart, we did." The night of truth was over, but justice was just beginning. By the following week, the video from the gala had spread across the internet. Someone in the audience had recorded the entire scene and posted it online. Within 24 hours, it had more than 300,000 views. David was suspended from his job the next morning. The company released a statement denouncing any form of exploitation or elder abuse. Melissa deleted her social media accounts, and Eric's investment firm announced an internal investigation. Patricia called me that afternoon. "They won't recover from this," she said, "and now the legal side begins." 3 days later, the sheriff's office served them with formal charges: elder abuse, fraud, illegal surveillance, and conspiracy. I watched from my kitchen window as the patrol car pulled up to David's driveway. Melissa was crying again, clutching his arm. I didn't feel satisfaction, just a quiet, tired kind of peace. At the custody hearing 2 weeks later, the courtroom was packed. Ryan sat beside me, his hands clasped tightly. Leo was with a court-appointed advocate in another room. The judge, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes, read through the evidence carefully. When she spoke, her voice was calm but firm. "I've reviewed the videos, the messages, and the prior history. This was not a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate attempt to exploit a vulnerable family member. The court grants temporary full custody of the minor, Leo Ellis, to his grandmother, Mrs. Marion Ellis." David tried to protest, but the judge cut him off. "Mr. Ellis, you are fortunate to receive any visitation at all. Supervised, 2 hours per week." Patricia touched my arm. "You did it," she whispered. The criminal case moved quickly after that. Eric pled guilty, first 4 years in prison and permanent loss of his financial license. Melissa followed, sentenced to 3 years plus 5 years probation. David held out longer but eventually accepted a plea deal, 5 years in prison and full restitution. When the sentencing ended, I walked out of the courthouse into the bright afternoon light. Ryan was waiting at the steps, Leo beside him, clutching my hand. For the first time in months, I felt the air go through my lungs without weight. That night, I made spaghetti and meatballs for the 3 of us. We ate at the kitchen table, laughter slowly replacing the silence that had once haunted this house. Leo told us about his science project. Ryan talked about his college classes, and I just listened, grateful for the sound of their voices. They had tried to take everything from me: my home, my freedom, my dignity. Instead, they lost the very thing that made life worth living. Justice had been served, but more importantly, peace had come home again. 18 months have passed since that night at the gala. The house that once felt like a cage is quiet again, but it no longer feels haunted. I sold it a few months ago. Too many memories, too many shadows. Now I live in a smaller place on Willow Lane, a cozy house with a garden of lavender and morning light that spills through the windows. Leo has his own room filled with books and toy airplanes. Ryan comes home on weekends from college, doing laundry and stealing cookies from the jar, just like he used to. Sometimes when I sit on the porch with my tea, I still think about David and Melissa. They'll be in prison for a few more years. I hope in time they'll understand what they destroyed and what they can never take back. As for me, I've learned that peace isn't about forgetting. It's about knowing you survived what was meant to break you and choosing to keep living anyway. If you've ever been underestimated because of your age, remember this: wisdom is not weakness. Silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. And when the truth finally speaks, it doesn't need to shout. I'm Marion Ellis, and this was my story. If it moved you, share it. Someone out there might need to hear that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. Subscribe to The Art of Revenge for more true stories about courage, justice, and